I'm going to say it right up top. Springsteen Deliver Me From Nowhere is probably one of my biggest disappointments of 2025. I had very, very high hopes going in, and it did not meet them. Now, I'm not one of those people who gets cynical every time a new musician biopic gets announced. I don't automatically roll my eyes at the idea. There are definitely people out there who think that these kinds of movies, whether it's Walk the Line or Ray or Bohemian Rhapsody or A Complete Unknown, have to justify their existence. They get a lot more scrutiny than most films because of all the baggage that comes with them. People ask, does this story actually need to be told, or is it just another jukebox movie where an actor puts on a costume, does a silly impression, and maybe wins an Oscar for it? Deliver Me From Nowhere does try to buck against some of those expectations, but unfortunately, it ends up being the exact kind of thing it's pretending not to be. Where a film like I'm Not There, the Todd Haynes Bob Dylan movie, felt like something new, something experimental and strange and alive, Deliver Me From Nowhere feels like a paint by numbers film that wants to look like an experimental, dreamy take on the musical biopic, but never actually commits to being that. Like A Complete Unknown from last year, it focuses on a small, specific sliver of the artist's life. In Dylan's case, it was right before the Newport Folk Festival as he transitioned from acoustic folk hero to electric rock icon, alienating half of his audience in the process. Deliver Me From Nowhere takes a similar approach. It zeroes in on the period right after The River, when Springsteen was already a star, Born to Run had made him a household name, but this film is about him writing and recording Nebraska, a huge stylistic departure from everything he had done before. He recorded Nebraska on a little 4-track cassette recorder in his bedroom in a rented house in New Jersey. The recordings were raw, imperfect, unpolished. The songs were these stark, almost folktale-like portraits of America that felt half real, half invented. They reflected something deeply personal in Bruce, his upbringing, his complicated relationship with his father, played in the film by Stephen Graham. But at the same time, they were detached and mythic. If you haven't heard Nebraska, I urge you to listen to it. I do think it's a really good album. Now, on paper, I understand why this story would be compelling. There's a clear vision here, but for me, the film never quite gets where it wants to go. For most of the runtime, honestly, I'd say like 70% of it, I felt like I was just watching montages set to songs from Nebraska. Bruce skipping stones on a lake, Bruce brooding and looking out at the ocean, Bruce scribbling in his notebook. This kind of feels like the movie you'd get if you asked AI to generate a musician biopic sequence. This is what it would spit out. All of the expected imagery, all of the gestures, watching someone write in a notebook while an acoustic song plays in the background. And look, like I said, I'm a fan of Nebraska. I think Nebraska is a really good album, but it's not Born in the USA or Born to Run. No casual fans, your average person in America, is not thinking of Nebraska first when they think of Bruce Springsteen. So when the movie treats this period like the most important, dramatic, world-shaking moment in his career, it rings a little bit hollow. And I understand the impulse to make a movie about it. Bruce was battling depression, struggling with his identity, wrestling with his past. But the film dances around those ideas so abstractly that I never actually felt like I understood who Bruce was in this moment. And structurally, this film is just so familiar. Bruce comes off tour. He's told he needs to start working on the next album. He meets a woman. He gets distracted by his work and his depression. He neglects her. His father gets sick. He flies out to California to go see him. You can almost feel the checklist being ticked off in real time. And the problem isn't just that we've seen this before, it's that we've seen it done better. That's what made A Complete Unknown work so well. It still hit the familiar beats, so you still feel comfortable, but it was interesting to watch the whole way through. It had energy. It had Bob Dylan's best songs. It felt alive. Deliver Me From Nowhere just feels overly dramatic. Not quite melodramatic, but close. By the third scene of Jeremy Allen White yelling at his producer that the album sounds too clean and that they're ruining the soul of it, I was exhausted. The film takes itself so seriously that it borders on self-parody. It treats the making of Nebraska like it's the most important event in music history, and I get it. You have to make the subject matter feel important, but even by the end of the film, I still didn't really understand why. Now again, I went in familiar with Nebraska. I listened to it again before seeing the film, and I listened to it again afterward on my way home, and I still couldn't connect the dots between Bruce's childhood and most of the songs. A few of them make sense in that context, sure, but by the end, I didn't feel like I understood Bruce Springsteen any better than I did walking in. And to be totally uncharitable to this film, this is a movie about a guy writing an album, getting told it's unreleasable, releasing it anyway, and then going on to continue being Bruce Springsteen. And honestly, another title for this movie could have been Deliver Me to Nowhere, because that's kind of what the movie does. It just sort of goes nowhere. And hey, maybe that's intentional. Maybe it's supposed to be a quiet slice of life portrait of a star at a crossroads. But even if that's the case, it doesn't make for a very compelling watch. Jeremy Allen White is fine. He can brood. He's got that face. You know, he's got a great face. When he stares out at the water, it means something. But when that's 70% of the movie, it starts to lose its power. He's either staring, sulking, or yelling. There's not much range beyond that. The dialogue is another huge issue for me in this film. It's painfully on the nose. Everyone in the movie talks like they're in a therapy session about Bruce Springsteen. His manager, played by Jeremy Strong, literally sits at home multiple times in this movie explaining Bruce's emotional state to his wife, who's drinking a glass of wine or doing her nightly routine while her husband psychoanalyzes his client. Every conversation sounds like it was written for the trailer of the movie. It's blunt, it's overly thematic, explaining exactly what the audience is supposed to take away from it. At one point in the movie, Bruce is avoiding seeing his girlfriend. He plays a gig at the Stone Pony and he slips out the back door, and of course, she's out there waiting for him. He says, I didn't know you were here tonight. And she replies, well, sometimes we miss the things that are right in front of us. Like, come on. That's not dialogue. That's just screenwriting Mad Libs. Or how about the scene, it's in the trailer, where the car salesman says, oh, you're a big fancy rock star. Don't worry, I know who you are. And Bruce responds, that makes one of us. How does that make it into the final cut of the film? The best parts of this movie are the ones that deal directly with the Nebraska recording process. Those scenes in the bedroom with the 4-track or in the studio where they're trying to figure out how to master the tape without losing its texture, those are honestly the best. Those are pretty compelling. The love story, on the other hand, feels completely unnecessary. Maybe it happened in real life, but here it just feels like a narrative crutch to highlight Bruce's avoidance and emotional distance. And look, I get that this is a film about depression, about inner demons, but it feels like the safest possible depiction of those things. Depression here means laying on the floor alone in an empty house listening to the band Suicide, or walking down a boardwalk with your hands in your pockets, or staring out at the ocean like you want to walk into it, or looking up at an old mansion on a hill from your childhood and going home to write the song Mansion on the Hill. It's both too subtle and not subtle enough. The performances across the board are fine. Odessa Young, who plays Bruce's girlfriend, is probably the standout for me. Stephen Graham does what he can as Bruce's father, your standard 1950s drunk, abusive dad archetype. Paul Walter Hauser gets a few moments of comic relief as the amateur engineer that actually records Nebraska. Jeremy Strong is solid as John Landau, Bruce's manager, but their relationship never really felt earned. We're kind of told from the beginning that they have this deep bond, but I don't know, we never really see it. So when the movie leans on that connection emotionally by the end, it just didn't really land for me. At the end of the day, Springsteen, Deliver Me from Nowhere, just doesn't deliver. It's too safe, too generic, too self-serious. I was genuinely looking forward to it. I love the album Nebraska. I'm a big Bruce Springsteen fan, but what we get feels like the most predictable, middle-of-the-road version of this story. Every great musical biopic needs at least one unforgettable scene, something that cements it in the genre. A Complete Unknown had Bob Dylan playing The Times They Are Changing, a scene that almost brought a tear to my eye. Walk the Line has like half a dozen moments like that. Same with Ray. This one, I honestly can't think of a single scene I'll remember tomorrow. And that's kind of a damn shame. But anyway, what did you guys think of Springsteen, Deliver Me from Nowhere? Let me know down in the comments. Let me know if I'm way off base. Maybe this is your favorite musical biopic that's come out in over a decade or something like that. Let me know. I would love to be proven wrong, but this was a very big disappointment for me. Once you're done in the comments, don't forget to hit the subscribe button, hit the bell to be notified when new videos come out on this channel. Go follow me on Letterboxd so you can see what I am watching when I'm watching it. And I'll see you all next time.